A single human ship destroyed a fleet. No shots fired. There is a specific kind of arrogance that comes from winning too many wars. Admiral Grex of the Varith Rebel Armada had 111 of them. Not skirmishes, wars. Campaigns that had redrawn border lines, collapsed governments, made his name a thing whispered in fleet command rooms across 6-star systems, with varying combinations of respect and dread. He was not a reckless commander. He was not cruel without calculation. He was simply very, very good at applying overwhelming force to problems that smaller minds try to solve with diplomacy. So when his sensor operator reported a single unidentified vessel holding position at the mouth of the Varith corridor, Grex didn't panic. He didn't call for reinforcements. He set down his tactical brief, rolled his shoulders in the particular way that meant I am about to end something, and said, "Identification. Hull configuration matches human design. Pre-Exodus class, heavily modified." Sensor Officer DAV paused. "Sir, it's alone. I can see it's alone. It hasn't moved in 6 hours. No weapons charge. No communication. It's just sitting there." Grex stood, moved to the forward display. The ship hung on the screen like a splinter. Dark, angular, built with the utilitarian deliberateness that human engineering had always favored over elegance. Long patient. Send a wing. Standard displacement formation. I want it moved. Move, sir. Not destroyed. Grex considered. The Council's standing order, since humanity's return 3 days ago, was cautious engagement. No hostile action without authorization. He was not particularly concerned about the Council's standing orders, but he was pragmatic enough to recognize that destroying a human ship on day 3 of their return, before anyone understood what they actually wanted, was the kind of action that had unintended consequences. Moved, he confirmed. If it resists, then we discuss options. The wing launched. 12 vessels, a mix of heavy interceptors and a destroyer-class lead ship, more than sufficient to escort one vessel out of the position it had no business occupying. Grex watched them close the distance on his display with the comfortable attention of a man watching a foregone conclusion. The human ship didn't move, didn't charge weapons, didn't attempt communication, just sat there as 12 armed ships formed a displacement arc around it. Commander Vell of the lead destroyer opened a hailing frequency. Standard displacement protocol. Identify yourself. Acknowledge superior force. Vacate. The human ship's response, nothing. "Sir," Vell's voice came back to the command deck. "It's not responding to hail. Recommend we." Then the 12 ships' navigation systems all simultaneously flagged a proximity warning. Not from the human ship, from each other. Grex leaned forward. On his display, the displacement arc, which his navigator had plotted with geometric precision, leaving exactly the right clearance between each vessel, had somehow shifted. The ships were in slightly different positions than they'd been logged entering. Not dangerously different, just different enough that if any of them attempted a standard egress maneuver, they would intersect. They were locked in their own formation. "What just happened?" Grex said, quietly, carefully. His navigator was already running diagnostics with the speed of someone who knows the answer and doesn't want to say it. "Sir, our navigation transponder mesh has been, I don't know the right word, adjusted. Each ship's position data is being fed from an external source. If they trust their own readings, they can't move without hitting each other." "Correct." Grex stared at his display. 12 ships, 0 shots fired. His entire displacement wing sitting perfectly still, caged in a formation they'd built themselves with data they no longer controlled. "Pull them back," he said. "Sir, if they try to..." Slowly. Manual navigation override. Visual spacing. No transponder data. He paused. "And give me 43 ships." The weight of 43. The Varith corridor was not a place the galaxy chose to fight over lightly. It was a navigational choke point, a region of compressed dark matter and gravitational eddies that made standard FTL transit unreliable, which meant any fleet moving through it had to do so at sublight speeds for approximately 9 hours. During those 9 hours, a force positioned at either end could do exactly what the human ship was currently doing. Simply be there, with all the tactical weight that implied. Grex understood the geometry. The human ship wasn't blocking the corridor out of aggression. It was demonstrating that it could. One ship, holding a 9-hour vulnerability window, saying clearly to anyone who could read tactical positioning, "We understand your infrastructure better than you thought." It made him angry, which was useful because anger in Grex translated directly into precision. 43 ships. He'd thought about 80, but 80 would look like panic. 43 looked like a professional response. Enough force to be unambiguous. Few enough to suggest he wasn't concerned. He was, by this point, somewhat concerned. The fleet assembled in standard approach formation and moved toward the corridor mouth at combat speed. On the display, the human ship remained stationary. Still no weapons charge. Still no communication. Still, somehow, projecting the gravitational presence of something much larger than its hull dimensions justified. "Any changes?" Grex asked. "Negative," DAV reported. "No additional human contacts. No change in the vessel's posture. It is." A pause. "It appears to be waiting." "For what?" "I don't know, sir." They were 40,000 kilometers out when Grex's fleet began to notice the interference. Not weapons fire. Not a jamming signal. He'd have recognized that. Deployed countermeasures. Handled it in a known way. This was something subtler. The fleet's distributed tactical network. The system that allowed 43 ships to operate as a single coordinated organism, sharing sensor data, coordinating firing solutions, synchronizing maneuvers in real time, began to run slow. Not offline. Not obviously compromised. Just slow. Data taking a fraction of a second longer than it should to propagate between ships. Targeting solutions resolving with a slight but consistent delay. Nothing that would register as a malfunction. Everything that would matter in the first 10 seconds of a combat engagement. Grex recognized it immediately. He'd used similar tactics himself, once, against a civilization with faster AI response times than his own. Slow the network, not stop it, and watch your enemy's reaction speed fall, just far enough that their coordination advantage disappears. "They're in our tactical net," he said. Dav's hands went still on his console. "Sir, that's not possible. Our network security is compromised." "Yes." Grex kept his voice very level. "Not broken. Adjusted." The same word his navigator had used 40 minutes ago. Adjusted. Not destroyed. Not overwhelmed. Just quietly modified to serve a different purpose. "They're not attacking us. They're making us slow." "Sir." "Options," he said. "If we engage without the tactical net, what are we looking at? Independent ship-to-ship combat. No coordinated solutions. 43 platforms operating semi-autonomously." His tactical officer looked up from her console. "Against an unknown vessel with demonstrated electronic warfare capability that exceeds anything in our threat library." She paused. "I would not recommend it. I'm not asking for a recommendation. I'm asking for options." She met his eyes. "We pull back, or we proceed, knowing we're fighting blind." What discipline looks like. Lieutenant Commander Asseldorn had not slept in 31 hours, and was beginning to feel it in the specific way that manifested as hyperclarity. The edges of everything slightly too sharp, thoughts arriving faster than she could process them. The particular focus that lived 3 hours past exhaustion and would collapse without warning. She was fine with it. She'd operated in worse conditions. The USCS Persistent was not a large ship. It was not meant to be. It was a Type 4 electronic dominance vessel, a category of craft that humanity had spent 60 years developing specifically for situations like this one, where brute force was both available and counterproductive. Its hull housed more computing architecture per square meter than most alien flagships. Its crew of 31 were among the most specialized technicians in the human fleet, and its weapons loadout was, by the standards of a vessel its size, almost embarrassingly minimal. 3-point defense turrets, 2 light torpedo bays, a single directed energy emitter that was technically a communications array, with unfortunate secondary applications. That was it. The Persistent had never fired its weapons in operational deployment. Assel intended to maintain that record today. 43 contacts, closing at combat speed, reported Ensign Miri from the sensor station. Young, sharp, trying very hard not to look impressed by the size of the incoming force. Network interference package is holding. Their tactical coordination is degraded approximately 41%. 41. Assel repeated, tasting the number. Not enough. I can push to 60, but they'll detect the intrusion and... No, we stay subtle. Assel looked at the display. 43 ships, each one individually capable of reducing the persistent to its component atoms, currently moving through metaphorical fog because humanity had spent 3 months infiltrating their tactical architecture before anyone knew they were back. We want them to understand what's happening. We don't want them to feel helpless. There's a difference. Commander, her AI tactical partner, a system the crew called Ren, spoke from the ship's ambient audio. It had been listening, as it always did. Admiral Grex is requesting options from his staff. Probability of advance and engage is dropping. Current trajectory suggests halt and reassessment within 4 minutes. Good. Assel stood, moved to the forward station, looked at the 43 ships on her display. 43. She'd been briefed on Grex. 11 wars, pragmatic, controlled, not given to reckless action. He was angry, not stupid. When he halts, we talk. And if he advances, then we do the thing we really don't want to do. She paused, and he goes home with 43 ships that are never quite the same again. Ren processed this. You are referring to the deep architecture rewrite. Yeah. That would take approximately 9 minutes to complete, during which they could. Ren. She glanced up at the ceiling in the way that men I know, we've been through this. If Grex advances after everything we've shown him, he deserves 9 uncomfortable minutes. She looked back at the display. But he won't. He's too good. On the display, 43 ships began to decelerate. Assel allowed herself a small, private exhale. See, the architecture of helplessness. Grex halted his fleet at 32,000 kilometers. He sat in his command chair for 4 minutes without speaking while his staff ran diagnostics and confirmed what he already knew. His tactical network was compromised in a way that none of their countermeasure protocols could reverse without taking the entire system offline. And taking the entire system offline in proximity to a hostile vessel was the kind of thing that got fleets destroyed. He was not going to get his fleet destroyed. Communications, he said finally. Frequency, sir. All standard diplomatic channels. And he paused, which was unusual enough that his bridge crew noticed. And the command private channel. Another pause. My command private channel. The frequency that changed every 72 hours. That was generated by an algorithm known only to him and 2 people back at Armada Command that had been compromised exactly 0 times in 19 years of operation. He opened the channel. The human ship responded instantly, which meant they'd been waiting. A voice, human, female, unhurried. Admiral Grex, I appreciate your patience. The use of his name on a private channel he knew was secure landed in the bridge like a physical weight. He watched his crew's reactions in his peripheral vision. The controlled stillness of people who are professionally trained not to show fear and are currently very afraid. You have my attention, he said. I know. A pause. Not uncomfortable, just considered. I want to explain what's happening, because I think you deserve to understand it rather than just experience it. The voice was young, confident without being arrogant, which was a difficult combination to maintain. Your tactical network has been running a shadow version for approximately 6 weeks. Not interfering with your operations, just building a map. Today, we activated a subset of that map. Your ships can't coordinate at full efficiency. They can't egress without risking collision. And in approximately another pause, 37 minutes, if nothing changes, your fleet's navigation archives are going to receive a data package that will update every known route through the Verith corridor with incorrect positional data. Grex kept his voice absolutely level. What do you want? To tell you 3 things. The voice shifted slightly. Not warmer, not colder, just precise. First, we are not your enemy. The corridor is ours now, and that won't change, but we have no interest in engaging the Armada. A beat. Second, Executor Callan of the Drevithi Dominion reached out to your command structure 11 days ago with a proposal. We know what the proposal was. Think very carefully about whether accepting it serves the Armada's actual interests. The bridge was absolutely silent. Third, she said, the package we're going to send your navigation archives in 37 minutes isn't false data. Another pause. It's correct data, more accurate than anything you're currently running. Consider it a gift. She stopped, waited. Grex breathed out, very slowly. And if I choose to advance anyway, then we have a different conversation. The voice was quiet, completely certain, and this one ends much less productively. He stared at the single ship on his display. One vessel, 31 crew, his intelligence had estimated, and he was no longer confident his intelligence was worth anything. Against 43. You said Callan contacted us 11 days ago, he said slowly. That's before humanity announced its return. Yes, she said. The implications of that settled over the bridge like cold atmosphere. 8 minutes, Admiral, the voice said. After that, we decide for you. A pause, and this one carried something he hadn't expected in it. Something almost gentle. You're a good commander. You've kept your people alive through 11 wars. Don't make this the one where that changes. The channel stayed open, waiting. Grex looked at his hands. At 43 ships, sitting in modified formation, compromised and still. At one human vessel that had not charged a weapon, had not fired a shot, had not made a single move that any court of galactic law could classify as an act of war. Stand down, he said quietly. All ships, stand down and hold position. What CLN knew? 11 days before humanity announced its return. Greg sat with that number for a long time after the persistent, still unmoved, still patient, still alone, accepted his stand-down acknowledgement and went quiet again. 11 days before the cash-in threshold appearance. Callan had reached out to the Armada 11 days before that, with a proposal that Grex's command structure had not yet fully briefed him on, which was in itself unusual enough to be alarming. He pulled up the summary on his secure terminal. Read it twice. Callan's proposal had been straightforward, almost insultingly so. The simplicity of it, the way very complex intentions were sometimes hidden. A mutual defense compact. The Dominion and the Armada aligned against potential future destabilization of inter-system sovereignty. No specific enemy named. No specific threat defined. 11 days later, humanity returned. We know what the proposal was, the human commander had said. Think carefully about whether accepting it serves your actual interests. Grex was thinking very carefully. If Callan had known humanity was returning, had known early enough to begin building coalitions against them before they arrived, then either Callan had intelligence sources of extraordinary reach and depth, or Callan had known because humanity's return wasn't a surprise to everyone, because someone had been in contact with them, because the carefully maintained mystery of where humanity had gone and what they'd been doing had holes in it that the galaxy's intelligence apparatus had never managed to find. And if Callan was moving against humanity before their arrival was public knowledge. Ren, he said quietly, away from the bridge, in his private command space. Admiral, the AI on that ship, the one running their electronic warfare package. He chose his words carefully. Could you estimate its generation? A pause. Unusual for a tactical AI, which meant Ren was either genuinely uncertain or choosing how to present certainty if found uncomfortable. Based on intrusion methodology and network architecture, at minimum 60 years beyond current standard capability, possibly more. Another pause. Admiral, the infiltration of your tactical network wasn't conducted today. It was likely initiated years ago. The system you've been operating on for 19 years may have had a passenger for most of that time. Grex closed his eyes. How long had they been listening? The question the human commander had implicitly left hanging. Not cruel, not triumphant, just present. Dropped into the silence of his command space and sat there, absolutely at home. The galaxy had spent 200 years assuming humanity was gone. What if the galaxy had been wrong about when gone ended? Assel and Ren, aboard the Persistent, after the stand down, Assel sat on the deck of the engine room. Not her command chair, Not her bunk. The engine room, specifically the space behind the primary drive housing, where the vibration of the ship's systems came up through the floor in a way that felt, if you paid attention, like a heartbeat. She went there when she needed to think without thinking. "You're doing it again," Ren said, which was what the AIs always said to the people who had it. "Leave me alone. You're processing the awareness feedback from the engagement. Your cortisol levels are elevated. Ren." "Yes." I said what I needed to say to him. She leaned her head back against the drive housing, eyes closed. The vibration moved through her. Did I say it right? Ren was quiet for a moment. The real kind of quiet, not processing delay. He stood down. His fleet is retreating. The corridor remains secure. A pause. "You said it correctly." "That's not what I asked." Another pause. Longer. "You told him the truth," Ren said finally. "You gave him information that protects his people from Count's positioning. You treated him as an intelligent adult capable of making the right choice when given accurate data." Something shifted in the AI's voice, subtle, but Assel knew Ren well enough to hear it. "You did what Commander Solen would have done." Assel opened her eyes and looked at the ceiling, at the hull above her, at the 31 people on this ship who had followed her into a standoff against 43 without flinching. "The awareness was loud today," she said quietly. "I know. I was monitoring. I could feel them. All 43 ships. The people on them. The fear." She paused. "Grex has a crew of 400 on his flagship. He's been commanding them for 7 years. He knows their names." She looked at her hands. "I could feel that. Is that why you gave him 8 minutes instead of ending it immediately?" "I gave him 8 minutes," Assel said, "because he deserved the chance to be the commander his people think he is." She closed her eyes again. "The awareness isn't a weapon. It's a responsibility." Ren processed this in silence. Then, "Lena, 7 has transmitted a debrief request." "I know. Commander Solen has also sent a personal message." Assel sat up slightly. Personal messages from Solen were rare. She operated at a level where personal communication was a deliberate strategic choice, not a habit. "What does it say?" "4 words. Ren paused. "You did good, Assel." She sat with that for a moment. The engine vibration and the 4 words, and the slowly retreating presence of 43 ships in the far dark. Then she stood up, straightened her uniform, and went back to the bridge. The galaxy learns a new word. The after-action report that Grex filed with Armada Command was classified at the highest level, and it stayed that way for exactly 4 days before someone leaked it. Not the full report, just the conclusion section, just the part where Grex, 11 wars and 0 defeats, wrote in the flat, declarative language of a commander who had looked at something clearly and reported what he saw. The vessel did not engage. It did not threaten. It did not posture. It identified our vulnerabilities, demonstrated mastery of our systems, offered us accurate intelligence, and gave us time to make a good decision. This is not a combat doctrine. This is something else. I do not have adequate terminology for what I witnessed. I am recommending immediate review of all fleet network security architecture. Not because it was attacked, but because we cannot confirm how long it has been observed. I am also recommending that Command review Executor Count's proposal in light of humanity's demonstrated prior knowledge of its contents. The corridor is lost. More accurately, it was never ours to hold. That last line was the one that spread. It was never ours to hold. It appeared in council briefings, diplomatic dispatches, fleet intelligence reports. It became, without anyone choosing to make it so, a kind of shorthand for the specific experience of encountering humanity's return. The sensation of realizing that the ground you were standing on had always had a different owner, and the owner had simply been absent. The word that emerged from the report's leaked conclusion, not from any human transmission, not from any official communication, but from the galaxy's own attempt to name what it was experiencing, was reclamation. Not conquest, not invasion, not return, reclamation. As if the galaxy understood, at some level beneath policy and politics, that humanity wasn't taking anything that hadn't been theirs. In the Drevithi Dominion's war room, High Executor Callan read Grex's report, and felt the careful architecture of his preemptive coalition beginning to develop cracks he hadn't planned for. His intelligence operation, the one designed to find the Exodus files to understand what humanity had found in the dark, had turned up fragments, pieces of records that told half a story, enough to be alarming, not enough to be actionable. But there was a name in the fragments, appearing in the final records before the Exodus, in the logs of the last human ships to leave known space. A designation, a location, a thing that humanity had gone toward rather than away from. Callan had sent his best intelligence team to find what that location was now. They had not reported back. That had been 6 days ago. Across the fleet, aboard the Persistent, Ren flagged an anomaly in deep space telemetry, a faint signal pattern from a direction that no vessel should be transmitting from, using a frequency modulation that was either random noise or the most primitive form of a communication protocol, so old that Ren's database only contained one reference to it. A protocol that predated humanity's exodus. A protocol that matched, with 94.7% confidence, transmissions logged in the final weeks before humanity disappeared. Ren filed the report to Commander Solen's personal channel and waited. The Persistent held its position at the Varith corridor, and the galaxy went on around it. And somewhere in the dark behind the edges of known space, something very old considered whether the galaxy was ready yet. One ship, 0 shots, 43 vessels standing down. But Callan's intelligence team went dark 6 days ago, and Ren just found a signal that shouldn't exist, transmitting in a language that vanished with the Exodus. Episode 3. The first human colony takes a system, but something is already living there that the colony maps don't show. Enjoyed this? Hit like and subscribe to support the channel. Check the end screen for more epic tales. Humanity prevails.